Okay, so welcome to the third annual presentation by the Western Nudist Research Library. Two years ago, we celebrated, when we were celebrating Glen Eden's 60th birthday, we looked back at what Glen Eden was like 30 years of age and compared it to nearby McConnville, which was in the hills above Lake Elsinore. Last year, we focused on the Canadian origins of Ray and Mildred Kennett, starting in 1939 at the Van Tang Club in the hills above Vancouver, British Columbia. And we followed his journey all the way to when he and Mildred came to Olive Dell in 1958 and then founded Glen Eden. Today we're going to focus on Olive Dell itself, its entire 70-plus year history, and we're going to be talking about those magical years in the late 50s and early 60s when Ray and Mildred Kennett got to Olive Dell and history was made. So, in 1956, a gentleman by the name of Cec Cinder, or actually his pen name was Cec Cinder, became a member of Olive Dell. Now, who is this Cec Cinder guy? Well, he was a pretty busy guy. Former vice president of the ASA, editor of 4 nudist magazines, father of the free beach movement, author of the Nudist Idea, which has a gentleman by the name of Ralph Mace on the back cover. Where's Ralph? There he is. This is the most comprehensive history of social nudism up through the mid-1970s, and we have copies of it for sale for $30. Okay, so he did other things as well, such as, well, for all the things that he did, he was elected to the AANR Hall of Fame in 2003. We have the proof. Three years after that, WNRL was founded, and he was on the board of directors. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is that about 6 weeks ago, Dr. Cinder passed away at the age of 98. His daughter let us know of his passage, and then he had a quiet funeral for just the family. So let's have a moment of silence for Cec Cinder. Thank you. So when he was a founding member of the library, he said that when he died, he was going to give us his collection, which at the time was one of the largest private collections in the United States. And a few years ago, even though he was still alive and kicking, his daughter said it was time for us to receive that collection because he had developed Alzheimer's. And so we received it, but we figured out we didn't have a place to put it because the collection was so large. So we applied for a grant from the Naturist Education Foundation, which gave us enough money to build some swanking new bookshelves, increasing our shelf space by 60%. And Rocky, if he's around, you know Rocky, if you're a Glen Eden member, expert carpenter, built some beautiful bookshelves. I'll show you if you come on over to the library sometime. His memory, his work, the work that Cec Cinder did lives on because of this grant, and now we have the collection safely on our shelves. Something else I want to tell you about Cec Cinder is because he was the father of the free beach movement, he had at point wanted to write a book about the free beach movement, and he was in contact with Lee Baxendale, who founded the Nature Society up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin in 1981. And he sent Baxendale some material as they were working toward this plan of writing a book. Lee Baxendale passed away quite a few years ago. And the material that Cec Cinder sent him stayed up there at the Baxendale Library in Oshkosh. Well, Mark Story, who's now in charge of distributing the Baxendale Library, gave us Cec Cinder's free beach materials. I got this yesterday. So it's an example of how our library's collection is still growing, including the inclusion of some important things. So let's talk about Cec Cinder in 1956. He had some recollections of what Olive Dell was like in 1956. He said they had about a dozen members, 8 of which had not paid their dues. They didn't have somebody to crack the whip on anybody. You know, they kind of got away with stuff with Little Bill. But he said that even though Olive Dell was primitive by today's standards, it seemed like paradise to him and his wife. The sun lingering late in the spring and fall, blessing the natural beauty of its ample acreage, high on the eastern side of Reggie Canyon. Very poetic words. He's a pretty good writer.